Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Sean Mackey Show. He's so unpredictable. Mother Nature calls him for advice. All right, that's right. I'm back, ladies and gentlemen. Season 2, episode number 17 of the Sean Mackey Show. Today, Bears versus Steelers. The Steelers. I'll tell you what. This was a game that was, I want to say, back and forth all the way around. You know, both sides of the ball. The Bears end up winning this game 31-28. Saw plenty of action on both sides of the ball. Caleb Williams was 19 of 35 for 239 yards and 3 TDs. All right. In that same respect, Mason Rudolph for Pittsburgh was 24 of 31 for 171 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception, and 2 sacks. Caleb had a nice quarterback rating of 104.3 in that game, but he did have a costly mistake on TJ Watt's strip 6. Watt didn't recover the ball. It was recovered by Nick Herbig, but it was Pittsburgh's second touchdown of the game, and it gave them a 14-7 lead at the time. You know, and the Bears have been running the ball like crazy lately, but in this game, it just seemed like they could not produce much of a running game at all, okay? Kyle Monangai led all rushers with 48 yards on 12 carries. DeAndre Swift only had 15 yards on 8 carries. I think all in all total, the offensive line was able to only produce 99 rushing yards on the day as a team, right? Monangai had 48 yards, Williams 21, Luther Burden. That was a nice run, little trick play right there. I did like that run. Look, I think it was the double reverse. So he had 15 yards. And again, DeAndre Swift had his 15 yards as well. I know in this game, the Steelers game, it seemed like, and he did by 4 carries. Monangai took the brunt of the load in this game. I didn't know if we were going to start to see a shift here between maybe Monangai being your number 1 back and DeAndre being your number 2 back. I think what we see in Kyle Monangai is the fact that this guy could be an every down back. He could be a 4 down back. He's got the speed and the agility to break the long runs. He's got the bruising power to carry the brunt of the load in short yardage situations, right? So I thought maybe with the Steelers game we were starting to see a little bit of a shift there. Wait till you hear next episode. I did see some good things here. As a team, starting to gel and progressing in the right way. Some of the penalties seem to be down for the Bears each week. I know against Pittsburgh, let's see, they had 7 penalties for 83 yards. Not quite down there, but it doesn't seem like they're making the costly mistakes that they've been making early on in the season. One thing I'm seeing still a little bit is there's still some room for improvement from Caleb Williams. Second year in the league, still 19 of 35. He missed that's 16 passes that you missed. And I know even I think it was after the Eagles game. And so, yes, you're going to hear right now in this episode that we're a couple episodes behind, not really behind, But the fact that the Bears played the Steelers, on Sunday and then played the Eagles that following Friday on Black Friday after Thanksgiving, I mean, that's basically 2 games in 1 week. And I've put off recording because I had to digest some things. I'm I'm a cautious hopeful at 9-3. I think the remaining schedule for the Bears is going to be a tough one. We got the Packers today, the day that I'm recording this episode at 3:25. And then you got the Browns, and then you got the Packers again. You still got to face the Lions one more time, and you've got to play San Francisco. So we'll see what happens. All right. As far as the rest of the season plays out. Do I think the Bears can beat the Packers? Absolutely. I know their defense is pretty damn good, and they do have Micah Parsons, but I think Ben Johnson will game plan for that. I think you're going to see a lot of chips and help blocks, a lot of formations where they'll line up a couple tight ends or maybe 2-3 wide receivers on Micah Parsons' side. Get a little help out there, but I think Darnell Wright and Ozzie Trapillo can carry the load. Yes, that's another thing we got to talk about. Ozzie Trapillo, as of this game, I think he's going to be the starter at left tackle for the rest of the season. Theo Benedette struggled a little bit. There was a little bit of an injury there, and Ozzie Trapillo came in. And I think after, he practices with the first team in camp, kind of loses the job to the incumbent Braxton Jones. Then at this point, Benedette comes on a little bit better. And then now it's Ozzie Trapillo's turn. He looks like he's going to get the starts for the rest of the season. Going back into this Pittsburgh game, Williams still missing throws. And yes, the receivers are a problem because a lot of throws are just being dropped. But Williams he's missing like wide on guys. He's throwing the ball short. Dudes are trying to adjust their footing, and I think, just things are not gelling there for Caleb Williams. So what do we see against the Packers? Does Caleb Williams miss 15 or 16 of his throws? Does the defense keep the Bears in the game? Are we going to see some last minute or last second shenanigans by the Bears to win the game? Or is this a game where maybe, since Ben Johnson came out and said we're winning despite or in spite of our passing game, it's not where we want it to be. So do those things get taken care of a little bit better this week against the Packers? I know in that Steelers game, DJ Moore was targeted 7 times. He did pick up 5 receptions, 64 yards. He had 2 TDs. Roma Dunze was targeted 9 times, but he managed to snag 3 of those passes for 53 yards. All right. Colston Loveland targeted 5 times, 4 catches, 49 yards, a nice TD. And I want to talk a little bit about this cat, Nick McLeod. In that Steelers game, or by the time after that Steelers game came around, this is a dude the Bears signed in the offseason. He had a 1-year deal, but he has been just bad. He's had a real rough go of it. And heading into week 12, opposing quarterbacks were completing 88.9% of their passes when targeting Nick McLeod. And they have a passer rating of 131.5, right? That's the kind of stat line that gets circled on a game plan. And the Steelers absolutely targeted Nick McLeod when he was in the game. All right. So McLeod was targeted 5 times against the Steelers, gave up 3 catches for 24 yards and a touchdown. And his coverage grade from Pro Football Focus came in at 53.1 for that game, with an overall grade all season long of 53.2. Those numbers kind of confirm the eye test, what I've been kind of saying all season. I know he was on my chumps list once or twice maybe, and I've brought him up a few times, but He finished the game against the Steelers with 111.7 passer rating allowed. And that's right in long, that just shows he's been struggling all season long. All right. So that's Nick McLeod. Wanted to talk about that a little bit. But, despite the missed completions, I'm going to go against the Steelers. I'm going to go with Caleb Williams as one of my champs. Champs, chumps, greats, ain'ts, studs, duds, whatever you want to call it, right? I call him the champs. He was only 19 of 35, but he did have 3 TDs. He overcame that mistake of the Watt strip sack. He did show some poise late in the game. He did lead the Bears on 2 drives that eventually gave them the lead and helped seal the victory. Okay. Another champ that I'm going to go with, especially after one of the last 2 episodes, or last episode, I might have said that one of my chumps was the fourth quarter defense for the Bears. But now we're going to say that one of the champs against the Steelers was that fourth quarter defense. This week, they held the Steelers in check very late in the game. They stopped them with 2:01 remaining, and then again with seconds left on the clock when Jaquan Brisker deflected that 4th down Mason Rudolph pass attempt, falls incomplete. They turn the ball over on downs. The Bears are able to win the game. Another one of my champs this week against the Steelers is Montez Sweat. He had 2 sacks, 3 tackles for losses. Linebacker DeMarco Jackson had 15 total tackles, 5 solo, a tackle for a loss, and the dude was all over the field, and he was pretty great in coverage as well. Steelers versus Bears, my chumps, the Bears run game, all right? Benedette was out. Trapilo did get the start at left tackle, but as a unit, they only managed 99 yards. It's not bad. You always want to kind of get to that 100-yard mark. But as I've said before, I would rather have one guy being really, really close to that 99-yard, 100-yard mark instead of 4 guys having to contribute to get a measly 99 yards. It's not what we've been used to over the last few weeks. So we do know, and I will let the cat out of the bag. It doesn't have anything to do with, not going to spoil the episode against the Eagles, but we do know that Bears running game picked itself up in tremendous fashion against the Eagles, and we'll get into that in our next episode. One of my chumps for this week was the Bears defensive front. Yes, there was some injuries. They had a depleted linebacking core, but they did give up 186 yards rushing. Kevin Gainwell had 10 carries for 92 yards. That means that defensive front was giving Gainwell an average of 9.2 yards per carry. And that was terrible. All right. And keeping in with the theme, I'm going to say that the Bears' fourth quarter offense deserved to be a chump in this game. They were not able to run out the clock after a Steelers punt and the 2-minute warning. They did allow the Steelers one last attempt to tie the game. So, boo! That's this week's champs and chumps against the Steelers. Not much of a recap there. Like I said, with them 2 games during the week, I do kind of want to get to the Eagles show. So I'm just kind of getting this up there as a recap for the Steelers. So that's it. Not a lot to talk about in that game other than the fact that it was back and forth and it was a high-scoring affair. I mean, you're looking at 59 points between the 2 teams. Thought maybe at some point the Bears had chances to put up more points and to totally dominate that game, but they did not. So that brings us to this week's Forgotten NFL Legend, and we're going to go with Daryle Lamonica, nicknamed the Mad Bomber, due to his affinity for throwing the long pass in any situation. He didn't care. 3rd and 1, throw it deep. 4th and 9, throw it deep. Daryle the Mad Bomber Lamonica. He was selected in the 24th round of the 1963 AFL draft by the Buffalo Bills. He spent his first 4 seasons in Buffalo mostly as a backup. He played his next 8 seasons as the primary starter for, probably back then, it was the Oakland Raiders. Then they became the Los Angeles Raiders, and then the Vegas Raiders, and then back to Oakland. I don't know. They've been all over the damn place. And then he continued that journey after the AFL NFL merger, playing quarterback for the Raiders. He led them to 4 consecutive division titles between 1967 and 1970, and an appearance in Super Bowl number 2. All right. Daryle Lamonica also is a guy who got to play in the very first Little League World Series when he was a child, a kid, a teenager, playing on the biggest Little League baseball stage in the United States. He lettered in 4 sports and was an all-state quarterback at Clovis High School in Clovis, a suburb of Fresno, California. In 1974, the high school named its football stadium after him. He was a 3-time AFL champion, 1964, 65, and 67. The AFL championship MVP in 1967. 2 times, Daryle Lamonica was the AFL most valuable player in 67 and 69. Twice a first-team All-AFL player in 67 and 69. A second-team All-Pro in 1970. A 3-time AFL All-Star. 2-time Pro Bowler in 70 and 72. Twice he was the UPI AFL Player of the Year in 67 and 69. Twice he led the AFL in passing touchdowns. Ooh, pardon me. And the AFL passing yards leader in 1969. The co-leader in AFL rushing touchdowns in 1964. And a 3rd-team All-American in 1962. That, folks, is this week's forgotten NFL legend, Daryle the Mad Bomber Lamonica. It's a quick show this week. That's all I got for you today. Bears versus Steelers. Don't forget to check out next week's episode when we recap the Eagles versus the Bears. Some good things happening on Black Friday for our Bear Down Chicago Bears. I'm out, folks. Peace. I'll see you in the streets. Hey, if I made you laugh, made you think, or even made you smile, please tell all your friends. If I didn't, just keep that shit to yourself. Thanks for listening to The Sean Mackey Show.